So I guess our point, first off, is that there is no point. I mean, we're just talking, but one of the things I thought we could talk about, as a subject matter, because I suppose it wouldn't be great to show up with nothing in our head, but, what got me started on the idea of, hey, let's talk, and then, oh, hey, let's do video, was the question about what would lead to the event and all that sort of thing, and just this concept. It's I've found with my audience, and I don't know if you've done much of this with your audience, but I find that when I issue a turn in the road, it takes them a little while to take that turn with me. And so I find that, if I say, well, we're going to talk about leadership and success and, motivational type stuff, it takes a real long time for them to go, oh, he's not telling me about Twitter right now. Mm-hmm. Does that happen with your crowd as well?
Absolutely. And it's funny. I write about sales almost every day, but ultimately I'm writing about success and personal leadership and personal development and all these things wrapped up in the idea of how do you do that when you're a salesperson. But then as soon as I just get blatant and say, now I'm just talking purely about success and giving yourself permission, people resonate with that, and it's almost like, well, why are you holding that back? Why don't you just give me that? I want that content. And there's a desire for that kind of content. They want it. And almost when you're more blatant about it, some people resonate with it more.
One thing I find interesting, though, is, at least in my crowd, if I sell you that I'm going to teach you how to get more conversions via Twitter, you'll buy it in a heartbeat. Yeah. If the answer to the question, by the way, is, be a better person, be more human, blah, 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 you'll still buy it. If I sell how to be a better person, oh, I don't understand why that costs that much. Like, why should I buy that? Like, they won't pay for soft. They'll pay for, like, details. So it's almost like you have to hide the broccoli and the mashed potatoes.
It's the strangest thing because, and I say this about sales, but really it's about any endeavor that you would be involved in as a human being. Everybody wants to know what the secret is, what the tip is, what the trick, what the masters don't want you to know, and anything that's framed as here's the tool or here's the two magic levers that you pull to make this happen is exciting because it's the shortcut that you've finally been given. I can finally do this now without having to put forth all the work. But the answer is you have to have something inside you. It's who, not what. But the who's the hardest part to work on, right? How do I become enough of a value creator for somebody to buy from me or whatever that may be? But that's the part we don't want to do. We would rather find out. I saw somebody ask on my Twitter feed the other day, how did you get 24,000 Twitter followers? And the answer is, why do you want 24,000 Twitter followers? Yeah. But it seems like a shortcut, and it's not the shortcut.
Right, right. That's the, when I look at the questions people ask, it usually betrays the confusion in their thinking. And it's not that I don't have these gaps in my thinking. It's not that any of us don't. I mean, you and I both have these things where we try to really work them out. And like, well, what if we did this? Or how come that doesn't work for me? Or whatever. But I think that it's interesting if you pay attention to your own questions. Sometimes that's what you learn. I mean, where I'm stuck on things right now is what's the best delivery method, for instance. So people don't like long form video. People think that this or that, writing a big ebook, everyone thinks an ebook is a great thing, but who's reading them? There's a lot of people buying ebooks, and that's fine, I guess, if you just want transaction, but it's a lot of work. I mean, if I'm going to put all that work into writing something, I'm kind of hoping people do something with it. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on any of the questions that are, that you're working on or something like that?
Oh, I've got a list of questions I'm working on. In fact, I eat my own cooking here in this. I have coaches. I have an executive coach that I use with a life plan and to help answer some of these questions, like who am I? What the hell am I doing here? And how did I find myself in this spot? And then how do I move forward? And you and I have talked about some of the fundamental questions. This toolkit's changed. You used to have to find a gatekeeper to let you in, but now all bets are off, and you're on your own, and you have to figure this out. And I think some of what I struggle with is the same. I might frame it a little bit different, but what's the model for delivering this? All this content has to be free, and you're allowed to capture some value this way. How do you? And I know you struggle with the same thing. how do you leverage yourself across all the different ways that you create value and capture some of that value? And there's these, what we're calling a web jam, which is like a webinar if a webinar was more fun. And that's one way. And there's books and there's ebooks and there's personal coaching and consulting, but it's sort of a mess out there right now to figure this out. And I think you have to start asking those questions. I'm asking them of myself. How do you do this now? What are the new rule sets? And I think that the game is in flux all the time. So whatever rule sets we come up with seem to be changing as fast as we figure them out.
You know, in Trust Agents, Julian and I wrote this premise of make your own game. And I still stick to that. I mean, information comes from the weirdest places. My parents are having a yard sale because they're moving to Vegas. And so I'm over there wondering really, I'm talking to my uncle, my dad's brother, who's come down from Maine to see the family and pick up a few of things or whatever. And we're looking over at this guy and I'm like, what's the kind of person who comes to a yard sale and sees a leather sharpening strop, which belonged to my grandfather? You know, it's a piece of leather. You use it to sharpen knives. It is a very old school piece of technology. And he's looking it over and asking questions about it and sort of debating the value of it. And to me, first off, yard sales don't work for me because I'm not looking for anything particularly quirky. Like, I don't collect anything. So that's it. But he's there kind of going, you know, wonder if this is worth the dollar sticker attached to it. And all I'm thinking is you buy a coffee at Starbucks or you buy a Coke out of a vending machine for that. Get the hell out of the driveway. Give him the dollar and leave. If it's no good, throw it in the garbage. Who cares? But, you know, when you talk about the rules of the game, where this all comes to, where this comes back to is, what are the rules of that guy's game? That guy is saying, you know, I'm going to drive to some other person's house, stand in their driveway and debate the value of $1 because clearly I have no notion the value of a minute.
It's a strange time. You know, it's interesting the way that you frame that up too, that, you know, everyone is playing their own game in some way, right? And the preferences that they have, you know, and that's part of this business model discussion that you and I have an ongoing thing about this business model. You know, how do people want to be communicated with? How do they want this delivered to them? And I'm not sure they know what they want us to deliver a lot of times or how they want it. It's you know, we used to do a lot of webinars and there were paid webinars. And then people found out that I don't have to show up for the webinar because you're going to record it for me and now you're going to give it to me. And I want it recorded. And so people are all out of sorts about, well, only 25% of the people that signed up actually showed up. That's because they know they can have the content on their terms. They want to put it on their iPhone or their iPod and take it with them because that's what they want. And so everybody has these communication preferences. When I talk to sales organizations, they always believe, well, you have to use social media now because that's what's a hot hand. So you got to use it. But is that where your clients are? Do they live there? I mean, if they don't live there, then you're picking a communication preference that appeals to you, but not to them. And so they're the guy out there looking at the strap because they expect the phone to ring. Because that's their world. You and I don't know that world, but they do. So right. You sort of have to find them and take them as they lay. Yeah,
well, true. Find out where they lay. You know, I had a conversation a few days back with somebody who said to me, she was interviewing me for her podcast. So it was a very self-serving question. She said, you know, as the co-founder of PodCamp, you know, this big event about podcasting, what do you think about the state of podcasting right now? Because people like Mike Stelzner at Social Media Examiner are saying it's coming back. And you know what I thought about? So a long, long time ago, Michael Gohagan, who had started an event called Podcast Academy with this other guy, Doug, whose name I don't know why I'm blanking on, wonderful gentleman. Michael had this great story going about this guy who ran a detailing company in Los Angeles, and he hired a bunch of workers, and this is a long time ago, like 05, 04, and they wanted a way to instruct new employees on detailing. And so making them read a manual just wasn't going to happen. I mean, if you think about the dollar value of an employee for that, just isn't going to happen. So what he did was he gave every employee an iPod, and he made a podcast and, you know, put it on the iPod so that you could learn about detailing. Well, it was publicly available. So every other detailer in LA could also get the same information. So this guy was giving away the absolute trade secrets of his business. What ended up happening? What ended up happening was the guy was so name brand recognized for being the person delivering that information to that space that he would get business like crazy because other detailers would be talking about him while getting, doing the work on somebody else's car. Oh, that's really neat. How'd you do that? Well, I heard about from this podcast called the such and such, and next thing you know, like the guy got, he had no end of employees because other places were trained in his method. Do you know what I mean? So this is, it had nothing to do with podcasting being cool, viable, or anything. It was just the right tech to get the thing done. And yes, podcasting is back because we still have commutes of some form or another. And we still have some downtime where if we're out pushing the groceries, the cart around the grocery store, it's a great time to consume. So I think there's a lot of different opportunities that people aren't mining right now.
It's an interesting time. When you have children, I had to take my kid to homecoming last night. It's his high school freshman year. I was thinking about you. You're not that far behind. You're going to have to deal with that soon too. But he walks around and his earbuds are always in. He watches no television. There's no television show. Walking Dead. He does watch Walking Dead. Outside of Walking Dead, he watches nothing. But the earbuds are in continuously. And I noticed this and I said, you never watch television anymore unless it's Walking Dead. And he said, I watch YouTube. And that's where he goes for entertainment. So he made a different decision about how content's supposed to be delivered. It's supposed to be short form. He's supposed to be able to search for anything that he wants and find it instantaneously. So he's growing up with a very different set of rules than we have. So if you want a 14-year-old boy and you're going to put something on television, you're not going to find him. I mean, if you don't have an ad on an Xbox or someplace where they live, it isn't going to show up for them. So this communication preference thing is changing for everybody. I think ignoring, and I know you've written about this, if you think mobile is not important, you're so far behind right now because that's the walking around with these earbuds in and this device in your hand all the time is where we're going to be. And it's how we're going to consume the small screen.
Right. And I get that we're sort of the leading edge of all this, not the bleeding edge. But, the mainstream really is there a lot more than we think. I mean, the fact, again, Facebook has nearly 1 billion people on it. Now, when they go on Facebook, it's really funny. I listen to that number and I then ask the same question all the time to people, when I'm out somewhere, especially when I tell them what I do. I say, are you on Facebook? The minute I get done talking about my dumb job. And I say, what do you do there? Catch up with friends, sort of. And it always sounds just like that, though. Like I don't know. I'm there because everybody else told me to be there, and every now and again there's a picture from my buddy's fishing trip that I like. But Anthony, I was thinking just the other day. I just watched Amy Porterfield speak on Facebook at this Agents of Change event. Oh my gosh! So first off, she's just wonderful. She's a lovely, smart woman from California. For some reason, I always thought she was from Chicago. She was talking about the value of Facebook ads, the value of video on Facebook, blah, 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 blah. And I'm listening to her because I've had no success on Facebook. But what I immediately thought when I put those two thoughts together was so many people are showing up, they have no idea what to do. I could capture them with information that could be helpful to them. I could add value and deliver tons of value to them free and lead them to this thing of value that they might want. So there's especially talking about business models, free, 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 free. And if you want to keep going, it's a little bit of money, but I've already done all this. You get in with me.
Yeah, and the last 10 yards, we'll take you 90 yards across the field. The last 10 yards, we're going to need to be compensated for at some level. That's a business model thing. What's interesting, though, is about the age group that you talk about, because young people know what they're doing on Facebook. And I have twin daughters, 12 years old. They've already left Facebook for Instagram because in Facebook was how you delivered pictures. Now there's a better way to deliver pictures. And I don't have any of my children that I don't look at that they're not like this with the camera in front of them, taking a picture on Instagram wherever they are, whatever they're doing. And all their friends load up the comments right behind it because they live there. So they've already left that for another platform, which is why when Facebook bought Instagram, it made perfect sense to me because I'm watching these 12-year-olds already migrate off of that platform because they know what they want to do with this tool. Our age group and the age group above, I think, is a little bit more confused about that. And the business community, in my mind, is still confused.
Oh, sure.
about the value of Facebook.
Well, and also, I thought you were going to head towards then the value of Instagram. I mean, what I've taken from Instagram, because I was very late to that game. First off, I was an Android phone user for a really long time until just recently, where I put back the iPhone. And so they only just released the Android version. But, I thought, okay, well, photos are kind of one dimension of where we are with stuff. But, I wrote a post about this, about the rise of the junk web. And it's really funny how many negative comments I got about it. But what I was really saying was, no, I think we want this. I mean, the junk web is to dining and eating healthy what Pringles is, and we want Pringles. Do you know what I mean? When you get that can home, whether or not you should or shouldn't eat it, the serving size for Pringles is 1 tube of Pringles, So I think that, with business trying to figure out something like Instagram, there are some companies doing some neat stuff there. And then there's a bunch of tool bags thinking that the only thing you should show off is the product. Do you have to pause?
Yeah, I did. I muted for 1 second to tell my 14-year-old to come back.
Oh.
He's just creeping out of bed at 10 a.m., but that's actually kind of early for him. I'm surprised.
That's the beauty of being 14, right? I think that's the fun of these conversations, Anthony, is we're going to just, play them where they lay. Like you said, if people come in, or I was screwing around like a minute ago, I was screwing around with my egg timer, which I use a lot in my business. And I just made it go off though. And I was like, don't try to hide it below the screen.
I didn't mean for that to happen. What's the egg timer for? Share it.
Okay, so I use an egg, and by the way, it's really funny because mine's a ladybug, and I wanted to find the most ridiculous one, and there's probably more ridiculous ones, but I like that it's a ladybug. There's a ton of software that does the same purpose. And so you might say, for example, I have homework to correct. I have 70-something students in my writing class right now. That's 70-something weeks of homework coming at me at once. Sometimes 50 because a lot of people are a little slow right now. But, who am I picking on? I don't know.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah. So, but homework's getting harder for me. So it's becoming a bit of a chore. Like I love the work, I love the people, I love the opportunity, but the work of the homework is a chore. So I have to kind of push myself into a discipline of doing it. And so learning to love the grind, I set a timer and I say, well, I'm just going to do 25 minutes of homework right now. And I'm going to get up and I'm going to run around this place for 15 minutes afterwards and really do something vigorously physical. Or, I'm going to run over to the stove and make myself a little snack or something. But I set timers all the time in my business because what I find is that people are thinking about their willpower in such a stupid way. They're like, oh, well, I can't really do this. I can't hack it. Well, I can take an elite athlete, like a sprinter, and say, sprint for 4 miles. And of course, they're going to fail.
Yeah.
So all I've done is I've invented my time, my distance in all of my process. So that's what the ladybug does for me.
Yeah, I've got this map over here from David Allen's Getting Things Done, it's a beautiful map. It's the X-Plane people did this for him.
Yeah.
But one of the things that this methodology suggests is the time and the energy that you have as you make a decision about what task you're going to do. Is it the right task based on your energy level? And, you need some time where, and for me, it's the morning. At 5 a.m., my brain is completely clean. And so that's when I do my focused work between 5 and 7 o'clock. By the mid-afternoon, after the world starts creeping in with its demands and interruptions, I'm not good for focus work anymore. So I have to do the kind of work that I can do without having to give it 100% of my attention. That egg timer, I think, is a good metaphor for